Hey guys, welcome back to the course. Hopefully at this point you've had the chance to compile your arsenal of equipment and you're ready to rock and roll. Now, if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do it because I don't want you moving on to the next video until you've completed the assignment from the last video. So make sure you complete the assignment and gather that arsenal. Now, in this video, we are going to be talking about well, it's actually in this series of the next series of videos, the next few videos you're going to watch. We're going to be talking about the four pillars of exposure as it relates to underground photography. So one thing that I do want to mention before we sort of jump into these pillars, I'm going to be making some assumptions here. One of the assumptions I'm going to make is that you already have a basic foundation of photography. So you understand aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and what each of those does and what each of those controls. If I mention those three terms and you're saying, I've heard them before, but I have no idea. Well, that's why I included for you the Minimalist Basic Photographer course that goes over all of the foundational things you need to know to just, take good pictures in general. Not pictures underground, but pictures in general. So if you're a little confused about those, you're thinking, boy, I could really use a refresher, go watch that course, go through it, make sure you complete the assignments, master that content, and then come on back over here. I gave you that course because I know that some of you are coming to this, coming to the Minimalist Cave Photographer with very little to no knowledge of photography. You just want to be able to go underground and walk away with some great images, and you're starting from scratch. If that's you, watch that course and then come on back. All right, so I'm going to assume that you have a basic understanding of aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, and I'm also going to assume that you are going to be shooting with flashes, not flashlights, not lanterns, not flaming torches. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you're a caver. You're not going to be walking through with a flaming torch. So we're going to assume that you're shooting with flashes. A little bit later on, we'll go into how to do some continuous lighting with flashlights and other continuous light sources that are throwing out light all the time. But for now, we're going to stick to flashes. So back when I started shooting underground, one of the biggest challenges that I ran into was getting the right exposure. This was back in the days of film, so a typical trip would involve me lugging up all this equipment, my camera, flashes, tripods, my friends, and we would go underground. We would shoot a whole series of photographs, and then I'd walk back down, go to the film store, the film developing store, whatever it was, and drop off my film, wait 3 or 4 days, get my film back, take a look at it, and realize that half of the shots, or all of them, were totally underexposed. They're way too dark. So I would bow my head in shame, grab my equipment and my friends, walk back up, try it again, go back down, wait several days, and then get the results. Now, luckily, we live in the digital age and you can get instant feedback on your camera. But the one thing that taught me, having to shoot on film, was that I needed to learn and figure out and systematize how exposure works so that when I get up there in the cave, I'm significantly more likely to walk away with really nicely exposed shots and not have to go back and forth from the cave to the film store to figure it out. So I'm going to be sharing with you here in this next series of videos your strategies for getting a really good exposure and some basic things that you need to know. So those 4 pillars of exposure we're going to be talking about are: number 1, the shutter speed. Second is aperture. Third, ISO. And fourth is your flash intensity. So let's go ahead and begin with shutter speed. Now, first of all, we have to remember when it comes to shutter speed that caves are dark. There is absolutely no light in the cave after you get, so far into the cave past the entrance. Totally dark. So whether you open your shutter speed for 1/1000th of a second or you leave it open for 5 years, it's not going to matter because there is no light going through there to expose it. So what then does shutter speed do when it comes to controlling your exposure? Well, the bottom line is that the shutter is really just the gateway through which light passes. So all you need to know when it comes to underground photography, cave photography, is that the shutter needs to be open long enough for light to pass through it, and then you can close it. So if the camera or the flash is mounted on your camera and you push the shutter release and it instantly fires it, you probably only need to have your shutter open for, I don't know, maybe 1/125th of a second, so not very long. If you hand the flash off to your buddy and he runs down the passageway and has to push the little button on the flash to fire it, then maybe you need to have it open for 5 seconds, long enough for it to open, you to say, hey, fire the flash, him to push the button for it to fire, and then close the shutter. So, if he's a little, slower, then maybe you might need 15 seconds or so for him to, remember where that button is, push it, and fire the flash off. Now, if you're firing the flash multiple times, so you give the flash to your buddy and it's not a lot of output, so you need to really fire it off to get a lot of light in there, then maybe you need to have it open for anywhere from 30 seconds to 5, 6, 7 minutes so that there's enough time to fire the flash, wait for it to charge, fire it again, wait for it to charge again, fire it again, wait for it to charge, until you've fired it enough to get the right exposure. And we'll talk a little bit more later about how you go about compounding your flash. But for now, hopefully you get the idea that when it comes to shutter speed as it relates to underground exposure, that the only function it really serves is to let light in. And all you need to do is have it open long enough for the light to pass through, and then you can close it. In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about the second two pillars, aperture and ISO. I'll see you over there.